LA Theatre Works presents For Us All by Jeanne Sakata, directed by Annalise Erikson. For Us All is sponsored by the California Civil Liberties Public Education Program, a state-funded grant project of the California State Library. In this original LA Theatre Works commission, a team of lawyers fights to overturn the conviction of 3 Japanese Americans unjustly sentenced for resisting the World War II mass incarceration of all Japanese Americans on the West Coast. While the government uses every tactic to make the case go away, the lawyers and their defendant insist on nothing short of justice. The play draws inspiration from Enduring Conviction, Fred Korematsu and His Quest for Justice by Lorraine K. Bannai, and Justice Delayed by Peter Irons. And now, For Us All by Jeanne Sakata, starring Edward Asner, Brooke Ishibashi, Tess, Lina, Mike McShane, Derek Mio, Joy Osmanski, Jeanne Sakata, Andre Soluzzo, Josh Stamberg, Greg Watanabe, and Paul Yen.
September 1981. Dust. Covering the 3 boxes. That's what I remember. The original files from the Supreme Court cases of Fred Korematsu, Minoru Yasui, and Gordon Hirabayashi. 3 young Americans who, during World War II, challenged government orders for a military curfew and the banishment of their communities to barbed-wired prisons in the desert. A mass incarceration of over 100,000 Japanese Americans. I was deeply moved by the courage of these young men. In 1942, all 3 were convicted of criminal acts in federal courts. All 3 appealed, their cases going to the Supreme Court on the grounds that confining a group of Americans because of ancestry alone was unconstitutional. All 3 lost. I wanted to know why. On top of the boxes, someone wrote, United States Justice Department. They sat here undisturbed for 4 decades. A few days earlier, Hello?
Dr. Peter Irons?
Speaking?
We found him.
You did?
In a warehouse up in Baltimore.
Oh, that's terrific.
Some idiot misfiled them 40 years ago.
Where were they filed?
At the U.S. Commerce Department.
The Commerce Department? How on earth did...
No idea. Crazy, right? You'd almost think someone went and hid them there on purpose. The Commerce Department? Nobody will find them here.
So how...
Pure incompetence. Those cliches about government employees. I mean, just think. If it weren't for you, they'd be lying around lost for decades. Oh, wait. They already have been. Good luck.
I jumped in a taxi to the Commerce Department, and another stroke of luck. The clerk in charge of my Freedom of Information request was out sick. Now, I hated to be happy over someone else's misfortune, but since that clerk had the power to screen the records before I saw them and possibly deny my request, I could sidestep the usual protocol. Layers of grime and dust covered the 3 boxes. I took out my handkerchief and wiped the top of the first. Someone had written in black marker the case name. Korematsu versus the United States. I undid the twine, opened the box, took out the first paper on top. A memo from a Justice Department lawyer named Edward Ennis, addressed to then Solicitor General of the United States, Charles Fahey. We're in possession of information
that shows the War Department's report is a lie. And we have an obligation not to lie to the Supreme Court.
A lie?
Now, the government is arguing it was not possible to screen Japanese Americans individually. But Lieutenant Ringel's report directly contradicts that argument.
Lieutenant Ringel, from the Office of Naval Intelligence, who had intimate knowledge of the Japanese American community.
Ringel states, the Japanese who would act as saboteurs is estimated to be less than 3% of the population. And the most dangerous are already in custody or identifiable.
Only 3%?
In short, the entire Japanese problem has been magnified out of proportion. It should be handled on the basis of the individual.
Unbelievable.
Had we known of Ringle's views, we could have urged General DeWitt he could not base a military judgment to the contrary upon intelligence. The Justice Department is now representing the Army at the Supreme Court. Failure to provide the Ringle report would be a breach of the government's duties. We must advise the court of its existence. Any other action might approximate the suppression of evidence.
Holy smokes. I had just found evidence of a government cover-up at the Supreme Court. A few weeks before my discovery, I began researching the cases in the National Archives for a book I hope to write.
Sorry, sir. You'll have to wait. Someone else is using those files.
Oh. Do you know if it's going to be a long wait?
Well, yeah, if the last 3 years are any indication. See, this lady who's got them, she's been here like clockwork, Monday through Saturday, every day for the last 3 years. Everything she checks out, she pores over for days, makes copious notes. She must have spent a fortune in Xeroxing.
You don't say. Well, I'm only going to be here a few days, so...
So you better be nice to her.
Right. Is she...
Right over there.
Her head was bent over a book with piles of documents around her. She was scribbling away furiously on a yellow legal pad. Excuse me.
Yes?
Those papers you're looking at.
Yes?
I was hoping to look at them today, too.
Well, you'll have to wait your turn.
Yes, of course.
I should be finished soon, but not immediately, so you might want to get some lunch.
Lunch. Sure, good idea. Is there a place you'd recommend?
Well, you've got to be more specific. What kind of place?
Oh, anything will do.
That's not very specific.
I can just eat in the cafeteria.
Now, where did I put my purse? Oh, there it is. Hiding. Okay. Here's a pamphlet listing all the nearby restaurants. Just ignore all my scribbling.
That's a very impressive list of annotations and footnotes.
Well, I've worked here for 3 years. You gotta know the lunch specials. You like Italian?
Love it.
I'd recommend the chicken parmigiana at Saldino's. Lunch special, free garlic bread. But that's only for the lunch special. Otherwise, you pay for the garlic bread.
Thanks. Much appreciated.
Say, hope I'm not being nosy, but may I ask what you want these documents for?
Well, I'm writing a book on the legal challenges to the Japanese-American prison camps.
No kidding. Well, sit down. What's your name?
Dr. Peter Irons. I'm a legal studies professor at the University of Massachusetts.
And you're writing about what happened to us.
Oh. I take it that you were...
In the prison camps, when I was just a teenager. That's why I'm here, you see. Every day, every week, to find out why it happened. How it happened. Who made it happen.
That's why I'm here, too.
Good. Pleased to meet you, Dr. Irons. I'm Aiko Herzig-Yoshinaga.
Please, call me Peter.
So, you must know a lot of Nihonjin.
A lot of... what?
Nihonjin. Oh, you don't know what that means?
Sorry, I don't speak Japanese. Is that Japanese?
It is. Okay, I just assumed since you were writing a book...
I probably should know that.
Yes, I think you should. It means Japanese person or people. Singular or plural.
Oh. You're actually the first Japanese person I've ever met.
The first?
Wait a second. I met a Japanese guy in college protesting the military draft, but then we got arrested and I...
Okay, let's just back up a little here. If you've only met 2 of us in your entire life, and one of them literally a minute ago, why are you writing this book?
Because, Aiko, these decisions were terribly unjust. No matter what ethnicity you are, these rulings should worry us all. And as a law professor, as an American citizen, it's something I need to know more about, and so I think should all Americans.
Hey, that's a damn good answer. Now, what's this about getting arrested?
For resisting the draft, yeah. Ended up spending 3 years in jail.
3 years? So, your book, These Cases, I'm beginning to get the picture. Have you heard of the CWRIC? The Commission on Wartime Relocation and Internment of Civilians.
Yes. I've been closely following their work.
Well, I'm their chief researcher.
Oh.
And we're working like heck to get survivors to testify and tell their stories. But it is pretty doggone hard. Too much pain.
Yes, I've heard. You were imprisoned as a teenager.
Eloped with my boyfriend the night before and shot the heck out of my parents. We were afraid the government would separate us, you see. The next day, they shipped us off to Manzanar in the Mojave Desert. I got pregnant, had my baby, then transferred to Jerome, Arkansas, so my father could meet his granddaughter. He died 10 days later, Christmas Day, 1943.
I'm sorry to hear.
After Manzanar, 2 husbands and 3 children later, I married Jack Herzig, a retired Army officer who'd served in counterintelligence. After I moved to D.C., we started coming here every day to research the prison camps. The more I read, the angrier I got. And now with the CWRIC, we'll do something about this mess. Hey, Peter, you want to team up?
How's that?
Share resources. Compare notes. Going through all this stuff, lots of legal questions come up. You can help me with those. And for you, well, I can show you everything I found in the archive so far.
Yes, great.
Trust me. After 3 years, I know every nook and cranny of this place. I know it better than my own kitchen cupboard.
Aiko, a former housewife and devoted church secretary, trained herself to become a skilled archival researcher by the time she started her work with the CWRIC. So, Aiko, the correspondence concerning the magic cables...
I'll be Box 9 by the Picasso print.
Wow, okay. The January memos from Lieutenant Ringel.
Ringel papers, boxes 9 through 21. I'll M.
And the revised draft of Public Proclamation 93 that Attorney General Biddle...
You need special clearance for that one, but let me save you some trouble. I've got a copy in my bathtub.
Your bathtub?
I've collected so many documents, I've turned my bathtub into a filing cabinet.
No kidding.
And I hate giving up my bathtub, because I'm Japanese and you know we love our baths.
Aiko and I made a good team. She was the passion fueling our work, and I was the legal advisor. Our partnership brought good times as I got to know her and her husband, Jack, the 3 of us sharing discussions, dinners, and beers. And now it brought us luck at the Department of Commerce.
Hello?
Aiko, you need to get here now.
Why?
I found some files belonging to the DOJ about the cases. No one's opened them for 40 years. Better not to say much more. If anyone here finds out what I've got, they'll confiscate them, so...
On my way. Okay, I'm here. Where are they?
Here. Memos saying the War Department lied to the Supreme Court in a report claiming military necessity for the mass incarceration.
What? Let me see.
Here.
It is of primary importance that we correct the misstatements of General DeWitt.
And here...
It is highly unfair to this racial minority that these lies go uncorrected.
And here...
There is no doubt that these statements were intentional falsehoods. Holy smokes.
You said it. Over the next week, Aiko and I pored over the Ennis memos and even more evidence that had been suppressed at the Supreme Court. Statements from the FBI and the FCC, transcripts of phone calls, all refuted the lies used to convict the 3 men. That Japanese Americans had committed acts of espionage, that their mass incarceration was essential to national security, and that the Army lacked sufficient time for individual trials of suspects. These lies had been promoted in the document Ennis mentioned, titled The Final Report. Issued from the War Department in 1942, its author was General John DeWitt, Commander of the Western
Defense Command. I hereby submit to you my final report on the Japanese evacuation from the West Coast. This evacuation was impelled by military necessity. The surprise attack at Pearl Harbor by the enemy crippled a major portion of the Pacific Fleet and exposed the West Coast to an attack. More than 115,000 persons of Japanese ancestry resided along the coast and were concentrated near many highly sensitive installations essential to the war effort. the continued presence of a large, unassimilated, tightly knit racial group, bound to an enemy nation by strong ties of race, culture, custom, and religion, constituted a menace which had to be dealt with. Their loyalties were unknown, and time was of the essence.
Peter.
Aiko, what is it?
I found a memo last year referring to the destruction of an original final report before it went to the Supreme Court. I have it here. Read it.
I have witnessed the destruction of galley proofs, memos, letters having to do with the first version of the final report, signed Theodore Smith. An official under DeWitt?
Yes.
So this is a second final report? What was in the first? And why was it destroyed?
Don't you see?
Oh, my God, you really think that...
Yes, I do. And it worked, Peter. They doctored it up and it worked. Military necessity. Time was of the essence. The Supreme Court swallowed it, hook, line, and sinker. So all of us in those miserable camps, whose lives had been destroyed, thousands and thousands of lives.
Aiko, your work matters. You matter. And if we can prove that the government covered...
Go.
Where?
Modern Military Archives, to see if there's anything I missed.
Let me help you.
Smart man. Let's go stir up more trouble.
Hello again, Mrs. Herzig-Yoshinaga. My, oh my, we're certainly seeing a lot of you this week.
Well, I aim to please. May I see...
John DeWitt's final report?
Yes.
Well, we've got a new copy. The archivist just cataloged it. A box brought up from the basement.
Thank you.
Aiko, here's a free table.
Peter, hold on. It's a different binder, this one.
Different?
Different from the ones holding the other final reports here in the archives. Notes.
What?
Here, scribbled in the margins, see? And look at this next page. Slashes through some of the sentences.
Delete. Suggested revision, delete, replace with.
Peter, look at this arrow pointing to this bracketed paragraph. All the text is crossed out. It was impossible to establish the identity of the loyal and the disloyal with any degree of safety. It was not that there was insufficient time. And look what's written below.
Suggested revision. Replace with.
To complicate the situation, no ready means existed for determining the loyal and the disloyal.
No mention of insufficient time?
None. Completely gone.
Meaning they knew they did have time for individual trials?
They're saying they did. Right here. Peter, it's the original final report. Before revisions were made. 10 copies were made, and 10 ordered destroyed, so I assumed I'd never... Oh, my God!
The Smoking Gun. The original final report. One copy, miraculously, had escaped the fire and was now in Aiko's hands. And together with the Ennis memo, we now had overwhelming proof. The government had suppressed, altered, and destroyed evidence at the three men's Supreme Court trials. A few months later, my briefcase loaded with papers, I flew to San Francisco and made a call to San Leandro.
Hello?
Hello. Is this Mr. Fred Korematsu?
Speaking.
Mr. Korematsu, my name is Dr. Peter Irons.
Yes?
How do you do? It's a real honor to meet you. I'm on the faculty at the University of Massachusetts.
I see.
And I'm calling because I have been researching your legal challenge to Executive Order 9066.
Oh, well, that was 40 years ago.
I've gathered some documents together and made a discovery, which I think...
I don't talk about that anymore.
But...
I mean, from time to time, people ask me to talk about it, go to a group or class, and I used to try to do that because my wife thought I should.
I see.
Even went to UC Berkeley once, but I'm just not a very good speaker.
I understand. I've just arrived at the San Francisco airport, and I'm actually wondering if I could meet with you.
You're not a reporter, are you?
No. Could we arrange to meet? I really think these documents might be of great interest to you.
Well, it's a busy week. I'm chairman of the crab and spaghetti feed at our San Leandro Lions Club, and Sunday I'm flipping pancakes for our Presbyterian pancake breakfast. So, I'm sorry I can't meet you, and I really should be going now.
They could help reopen the Supreme Court case you lost 40 years ago.
Want to come by tonight?
I arrived at Fred's house, where he invited me to sit down. He was formal and polite. So was I. He had a tape recorder. So did I. So, you see, Mr. Korematsu, the government had in sum lied to the Supreme Court in your case, engineered a win based on a false and fraudulent record. Here's a sample of what we found. A transcript of a phone call made by General DeWitt.
There isn't such thing as a loyal Jap. It is impossible to determine their loyalty by investigation.
And that was right before he wrote his final report.
May I see the rest of those papers?
Of course. I gave Fred the entire stack. He sat back, puffing on his pipe, reading them page by page for what seemed like an eternity. Finally, he looked up.
They did me a great wrong.
Yes,
Are you a lawyer?
I am.
Will you be my lawyer?
Mr. Korematsu, I'd be happy to be of help, but there are a lot of obstacles we'll encounter, lots of things that could go wrong, and it may take years.
Yeah. I've heard those words before.
I imagine you have.
I was just a shipyard welder when those Japanese planes attacked Pearl Harbor. I had a girlfriend then named Ida. She was Italian-American, and we were in love and planning to get married. When those orders came out that anyone with Japanese blood, including American citizens, had to pack up, sell everything, and clear out of San Francisco, I just couldn't leave her. She saw a doctor's ad for eyelid surgery, and I thought, hey, if I get that, maybe I can pass for being Filipino and stay. So I went and did it, but when I looked in the mirror, heck, I didn't look much different. A few days later, the police spotted us on a street corner and threw me in jail. After that, I never saw Ida again.
And then Ernie Bessig from the San Francisco ACLU, that's when he came to visit you?
Yes. He asked if I'd be willing to join them in challenging these orders. It could take years, he said. But right away, I said yes, because what was happening wasn't right. It just wasn't right to round us all up like we were the ones who bombed Pearl Harbor when we were loyal Americans. And then my Supreme Court case, well, you know the end of that. And over all these years, I'd think about my case from time to time. But then I finally said to myself, Fred, you lost. Your case is closed. There's nothing you can do about it.
There is no guarantee we will succeed, Mr. Korematsu.
I understand. I'll have to ask my wife, Catherine, and my kids, Karen and Ken.
Of course.
But I think I want to go ahead. And by the way...
Yes?
Call me Fred.
Fred was the last of the three men I called. Minyasui and Gordon Hirabayashi had both given me the thumbs up and asked me to be their attorney as well. Now the campaign to reopen and reverse the cases began. The two men could not have differed more from Fred. Min, a fiery former military attorney, Gordon, a scholarly Quaker sociologist, but all three understood the enormous significance of this task. Never, to my knowledge, in American legal history had an effort been launched to overturn convictions in cases that had been finally decided by the Supreme Court. There was much to be done. I was a professor and a writer, not a litigator. I needed to find a legal team to help reopen the cases. I felt strongly that the cases should be brought by Japanese-American attorneys on the West Coast. These were cases that affected their communities, their families. Bay Area Attorneys for Redress, BAAR, was a group of mostly young Japanese-American attorneys in San Francisco led by Dale Minami. A pioneering advocate for Asian American civil rights, Dale had already litigated high-profile political cases. So I gave him a call.
Okay. Yeah, okay, got it. Thanks. Lori, can you come here for a sec?
There's all the research for the Masashi case, and our deadline's tomorrow, right? No, who was that on the phone? Now, where do we put the witness list?
A guy named Peter Irons. He's researching legal challenges to the World War II prison camps. And there's a case he'd like us to work on, but...
But, let me guess. He wants us to do it pro bono, like the others who've called?
Well, as a matter of fact...
Did he say he has tons of evidence?
Well...
Ah! I wish we could say yes to everyone, but with only 6 of us here, this page needs our signatures.
I know. We've heard it 1,000 times. But this case sounds different.
Different? How?
It's about Fred Korematsu.
As in, Korematsu versus United States? What? As in, the Fred Korematsu?
Yeah. I said to Irons, you mean he's still alive? But Irons said he just met with him. Also that he's been working for months with Aiko Herzig-Yoshinaga.
Aiko? Head of research for the CWRIC?
Mm-hmm. And they've gathered some powerful stuff on the government in the Library of Congress. Hardcore evidence of lies told to the Supreme Court in the Korematsu case.
What? Wow. So, you actually think this Peter Irons is legit, don't you?
Let's just say I'm intrigued. Lori, we've known each other since Gardena days. Our parents were good friends. In all that time, did your folks ever talk about the prison camps?
Never.
Mine neither. I know they remember, though, a lot more than they care to admit. The only time I ever saw Mom cry was when she tried to talk about it, and...
Remember reading Korematsu for the first time in constitutional law class?
Sure. And thinking, all Japanese Americans a national security threat? My mom and dad? My brother, 1 year old at the time? It's when I knew that Korematsu wasn't a case about justice. It was a case about power. Who had it and who didn't.
So, are you actually thinking that we...
Well, look, we've got to think this through. Because this case would take a lot of time, and we're only a staff of 6. We're already working 60 hours a week, and we're backed up as it is.
And the pro bono thing. I mean, how many have you done already? The Wendy Yoshimura case, the Filipino international hotel workers, the Chinese-American racial profiling case.
We almost went broke on that one. And I'd do it all again in a heartbeat, but...
Plus, we just finished suing Washington State University over not having an Asian American Studies program.
And what about you, Lori? You're just a year out of law school, and now you're an associate here. Just now establishing yourself, still paying off student loans.
Dale, don't remind me.
And if this case takes years, which we know it will...
Goodbye, friends and family.
Oh, forget it. We'll never see them.
You just got married. Ouch.
Thanks a lot.
And I really don't visit my parents enough as it is. We've gotten so crazy busy here, it's getting harder and harder to drive down to Gardena.
Same here. And we should visit more. They're getting on now. They're slowing down. Sam Kai, Dad's friend from camp who fought with the 442, he just had a heart attack, and...
Dale?
Our parents. This could be our chance.
To vindicate them.
We've got to do it. You got the Rolodex, Lori?
Yep. Do we need expert litigators?
We need people who are smart as hell.
Asian Law Caucus.
Director Don Tamaki, please.
Please hold.
Dennis Hayashi's on staff there, too, with a new clerk, Margie Barrows.
Call Karen Kai and Bob Rusky. Bob's in this huge office with typing pools and Xerox machines.
Oh, wow, the lap of luxury. Our machine just died. Again.
Who else we got there on the list?
Akira Togasaki, Ed Chen, Leon Miyasato.
Don Tamaki.
Don, it's Dale. You thought about it? You in?
In. Way in and way ahead of you. Already up to speed on Korematsu. Let's call Eric Yamamoto, too.
Eric? Didn't he move to Hawaii?
Dale, what the hell? I've just been offered a partnership with my firm. I've been waiting years for this. And now I have to turn it down and move to San Francisco? Damn it!
Eric, you don't have to do this.
And miss a chance to work on a once-in-a-lifetime case? What are you, crazy? but I'll need a place near Chinatown, closer to dim sum takeout.
See you in San Francisco.
The beginnings of a legal team grew as Dale and Lori recruited many attorney friends, all eager to work on this case, most of whom had watched their own parents suffer the horrors of Executive Order 9066. As Fred's team shaped up in San Francisco, Dale was designated lead counsel. In Portland, Peggy Nagai, assistant dean of the University of Oregon School of Law, agreed to be lead counsel for Min Yasui. And in Seattle, Gordon Hirabayashi tapped Catherine Bannai, civil rights attorney and redress activist, to lead his team, who also happened to be Lori's sister. I flew to San Francisco the weekend of May 8, 1982. Dale, Lori, and their first recruit, Don Tamaki, waited to meet me at the airport.
Sorry I'm late. Delayed delivery.
You finally got a new desk?
Come on. When we started the ALC back in 72 and you were a volunteer, all you had was a cheap office door thrown across 2 sawhorses.
A step up from the pull-down desk in your hippie Volkswagen bus.
Oh yeah, the good old days, when I showed up to court in a pair of jeans and told the judge someone stole my suit.
Well, now that I'm in charge of the ALC, we'll spiff things up just a bit.
Guys, I'm psyched.
I'm gonna withhold my judgment till I meet this Irons guy. Gathers the intel first.
Don, you ever get a gut feeling about someone? Just go with the flow?
The flow is overrated.
Ooh, is there a story here? One with a sordid twist?
Mr. Don Tamaki, Mr. Never Loses His Cool. I roomed with this guy for a year and he never drank more than 2 beers at a time.
Not gonna bite. Okay, I'll bite. Mr. Never Met a Beer I Didn't Like.
That's just to keep up with Lori.
And this is why I need to rely on cold, objective facts. What did this Irons guy sound like on the phone? What sort of vibe did you get?
I just hope he's not some stodgy, square Ivy League professor type in a corduroy sports coat with elbow patches.
God, no.
Hello, Dale Minami.
Peter Irons?
How do you do? And you are?
Lori Bannai.
Don Tamaki.
Oh, it's good to meet you all.
So your flight go okay? Anything you need?
I need a beer. And quick. Is that a bar over there?
Don, I think we're all going to get along fine.
And at Antioch College, I joined the youth branch of the NAACP. Worked on the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. Then I protested the Vietnam War, sent back my draft card and told them, I'm not coming. Got arrested and jailed for 3 years, but later learned the draft board had illegally moved up my draft date, so I filed a coram nobis case to vacate my own conviction.
Coram nobis? What the hell is that?
Okay, I think that's the legal vehicle we can use to reopen these cases. A petition for writ of error, coram nobis.
Huh, never heard of it.
I hadn't heard about it at Harvard Law. That's how rare it is.
Coram nobis. What does it mean?
Literally, before us, a petition that seeks relief for an error of the most fundamental nature committed before the court that results in manifest injustice. It's a very rare option, only for people who, for example, can prove the government engaged in misconduct at the time of their trials.
How'd you find out about it?
I was browsing the shelves of the law library looking for a way to get my conviction reversed. And in the federal code, I stumbled onto the All Writs Act 28 U.S.C. 1651 and this mention of coram nobis. Eureka! There it was. I put together a petition, attached incriminating documents, and filed it by mail to the U.S. District Court. The federal judge granted my petition, and my conviction was expunged.
This is incredible.
You think this could really work?
I'd say it's a long shot, but it may be the best shot we have.
Wait, what court would we file in? The trial court, the courts of appeal, or the Supreme Court?
How would we introduce 40-year-old evidence?
Would we file one joint petition or 3 separate petitions?
Guys, all in good time. Let's get out there and get the answers one by one. For Fred, Min, Gordon, for our families, for us. Let's play ball.
May 1982. Later that month, a few of us met Fred and his family at his home.
You're going to work on Dad's case for free? Dad, they're not going to do anything without you paying.
Karen, please, just hear us out.
No, I don't understand this pro bono thing. I don't get it at all. You guys are just starting out in your careers. How can you afford to work for free? What's in it for you?
Actually, a lot. Before the war, my dad was just about to graduate from UC Berkeley. My grandparents had sacrificed everything to get him there, but said it would all be worth it the day he got his degree. Then they got thrown out of their home by Executive Order 9066 and ordered into a cramped horse stall on the Tanforan racetrack, which still reeked from horse manure streaked on the walls.
Wow.
Someone knocked on the door. Dad opened it, and a soldier handed him a cardboard tube with his UC degree. And my grandmother burst into tears. Because instead of graduating at UC Berkeley with all the family applauding, here Dad was getting his degree as a prisoner in a horse stall. I still have that cardboard tube on my desk. So, to be able to reopen Fred's case after so many years, to maybe vindicate our families too, to be perfectly honest, I would pay to be on this team.
Thank you, Don. Peter, could I have a private word?
Of course.
I'm moved by what Don said. I appreciate the passion they have and that they're willing to volunteer their time.
Yes.
And I want to give this a shot. It's just that, don't get me wrong,
Yes?
they look like high school kids.
Fred had his worries. First, he could see the attorneys were young and green, blowing off steam during breaks with Pac-Man and Nerf basketball. And second...
Don, I hope I don't sound ungracious, but I don't want to speak to any groups or such. It's just not something I'm good at. And is my name going to be in the papers? Are reporters going to be, camping out on my lawn?
We'll do all the talking, Fred, and we'll protect you from the press. No sweat.
See, I work as a draftsman, and I'm not sure my firm would like it.
Dad, your ulcer. You should rest.
Yeah, Karen, I know. Thanks, Don.
Sure.
Look, Don, what I said, I'm sorry. Dad's been through a lot. We're protective of him.
Of course.
He paid a price for taking that stand. There were friends and family who shunned him when he did. Said he was a troublemaker and said he was making things worse. And all these years, he never said a word about his case.
When did he finally tell you?
He didn't. When I was a high school junior, my friend Maya gave a book report.
My report is about the wartime incarceration of Japanese Americans on the West Coast during World War II. I am going to be speaking about the Supreme Court case Korematsu versus the United States.
Korematsu? Did she just say...
In this case, the issue before the Supreme Court was whether the mass incarceration of Japanese Americans was, in fact, constitutional.
Oh, God. A couple of my classmates are looking at me.
And whether the government was justified in imprisoning tens of thousands of its own American citizens just because of their Japanese ancestry. The plaintiff, Fred Korematsu...
Fred Korematsu?
...lost his Supreme Court challenge, and his criminal conviction was never overturned. And so, his conviction remains on the books today.
Okay, this must be someone else. Dad would never break the law. He's just this quiet guy who... is this some distant relative? Some Korematsu black sheep no one's ever talked about? Because 35 pairs of eyes are staring at me.
Hey, Karen.
Hey, Maya. Great report.
Thanks. So, is that your dad? I didn't want to ask before, but...
I'm not sure. I don't think so.
You mean, you don't know?
I turned around and hurried home, feeling guilty that suddenly there might be this black mark on the family. When I got home, Dad was reading the paper and smoking his pipe. Dad? Korematsu versus the United States. Is it you? Is it?
Yes.
Yes? That's it? That's all you're going to say?
I was going to tell you and Ken when you were old enough.
Old enough? Dad, I'm in high school now. You don't think that's old enough?
I wanted to tell you earlier, but...
Do you know how humiliated I felt? All my friends staring at me asking, is that your dad? And I couldn't even answer. Why haven't you ever told me?
I didn't want you growing up ashamed that your father was a criminal.
So, Don, that's how I found out. And after seeing the look on Dad's face when he walked out of the room, I never asked him about it again.
This is For Us All by Jeanne Sakata, directed by Analyst Erikson. Our story continues in Hour 2. I'm Susan Loewenberg, producing director of LA Theatre Works.